Hi, you are on the Movie Girl channel. Today I'm going to tell you about the movie Blue Lagoon. Give me a like now and let's get started. The story begins in the 1890s, aboard a sailing ship bound for San Francisco. This is the main character. 7-year-old Emmeline is playing on the bow with 9-year-old Richard. Strict Uncle Arthur scolds them. The sea is no place for games. He's Richard's father, but he's also become Emmeline's guardian after her parents' recent deaths. While the cook named Patty Button is doing his job, Richard finds naked pictures of women in his cabin. Patty catches him and punishes both children. Suddenly, a shout from the deck.
Did somebody say fire?
The captain orders the evacuation and forces Uncle Arthur into a lifeboat.
Children!
Patty brings the children on deck and places them in the nearest lifeboat. In the chaos, they lose Uncle Arthur. Thick smoke from the burning ship hides their boat as they drift out to sea. The morning after the shipwreck, Patty Button is awakened by a trunk crashing into their boat. He searches through the luggage and takes the jewelry, but they have almost no food or water.
Are you a pirate?
Soon the sun sets. Day after day, the survivors drift under the scorching sun, losing hope of rescue. Emmeline hallucinates from thirst and thinks she sees land, but Patty also sees a green island on the horizon. The old sea wolf hoists the sail and soon they reach the shore. The island appears to be uninhabited. Patty hears running water and heads inland. Soon they come to a beautiful waterfall. Now they have fresh water and bananas grow everywhere. Emmeline also finds a barrel of rum. In a cave, Richard discovers a skull. These are the remains of a pirate who couldn't escape the island. They must leave before they suffer the same fate. While Patty watches for passing ships, Emmeline finds appetizing scarlet berries and tries one. The sailor forcibly removes the berry from her mouth.
If you eat them berries, you'll go to sleep. You'll never wake up again.
In the evening, the survivors sit around the campfire and the children ask the old sailor about life. Patty has been married 7 times and has 17 children in every port from Callao to Macau.
17 at the last count. I never set eyes on a single one of them.
On this island, Mr. Button finally becomes a good father, teaching the children everything he knows. He teaches them to swim, shows Richard how to fish and tie knots, explains how to attract passing ships. Together they build a tropical hut. Patty's only flaw is his fondness for rum. One day the old man discovers something terrible in the jungle. Thus appears the island's first and only law: never go to that part of the island.
That's where the boogeyman lives.
The children find ways to have fun even on a deserted island. In the evenings, they look at funny pictures about weddings and other social customs, and the tipsy Mr. Button entertains them with his dancing. Yes, he dances until he drops. At dawn, the rum is gone, and Mr. Button floats out to sea on a barrel in search of the nearest liquor store. The children wake up alone. Through the spyglass, they spot Patty sleeping on some rocks and row to him in the boat. But why doesn't he wake up? It seems that Mr. Button is dead. The children are now all alone on the deserted island. That evening, Emmeline cries loudly and begs Richard to take her away. They gather their few belongings and leave by boat. A pod of graceful dolphins accompanies them. Beyond the coral reef, the children discover a beautiful beach in a blue lagoon. Maybe they will stay on the island for another week. Fish are abundant and fresh fruit grows everywhere. Here the children swim with turtles and live like in paradise. Years pass. Richard and Emmeline have grown up. Together they built a cozy hut as Patty taught them. Richard has become a real provider and Emmeline a true beauty. Richard dives to the ocean floor to find her a pearl, presenting it to her for Christmas. Emmeline loves the gift. In gratitude, she gives the boy her passionate kiss. Recently, she's been having funny thoughts about Richard that she's too shy to mention.
Just thoughts. Funny thoughts about you and me.
One day, Emmeline decides to bathe in the lake. In the water, she notices blood on her fingers.
Richard!
She calls Richard for help, but then realizes what's happening and shamefully sends him away. Richard worries she's injured and wants to examine the wound, but Emmeline stops him.
That is not fair! I don't keep any secrets from you!
She secretly admires Richard's muscles, and he finds her behavior strange. What's happening with Emmeline? Despite their small secrets, they remain the closest people to each other. Suddenly, noise comes from the forbidden part of the island. Could it be the monster? But worst of all are the sounds Richard makes playing his homemade flute. It irritates Emmeline so much. They chase each other around their 2-story hut. Richard catches her on the ocean shore and pins her to the sand. Finally, Emmeline gets her romantic moment, but Richard sees it only as a childish game. In the evening, Emmeline bathes in water glowing with plankton. She looks magical. This attracts the boy's attention, and he joins her. Later, drum beats sound from deep within the island. Emmeline follows the sound but is blocked by a cliff. To go further, she breaks Patty's law and enters the forbidden part of the island. There, she sees a giant stone resembling an altar for sacrifices, with blood flowing from it. Frightened, Emmeline runs away. Returning home, she tells of seeing the stone monster. The girl believes it's a god as the stone was bleeding. Emmeline suggests praying to it, but Richard is angry she broke the rule. In her dream, Emmeline sees the stone god warning her of Richard's imminent death. Waking up, she's so happy to see him beside her. Forgetting herself, Emmeline kisses him. However, Emmeline quickly pulls away. Now Richard can't stop thinking about her. He watches the girl sleep, gently strokes her, and inhales the scent of her hair. But Emmeline wakes and rejects his advances. In the morning, Richard is offended.
Leave me alone!
Later, collecting coconuts, he notices a ship on the horizon. Richard runs to the beach to light a signal fire. Emmeline only watches as the vessel slowly moves away. But why didn't she light the fire? Knowing how Richard dreams of leaving the island, this enrages him. He decides to escape on his own. Emmeline silently watches as he builds a raft and sets out to sea, but the flimsy construction falls apart with the first wave. This amuses the girl. It's already his 4th failed attempt. Emmeline has accepted they can't escape. The Blue Lagoon is their home forever. In response, Richard mocks her feminine figure and parodies Emmeline, and deservedly gets a coconut to the head. But a slap in return? That's too much. Returning home, Emmeline sees the offended Richard throwing her things out of the hut. So the brave girl builds her own cozy nest. But the first rain catches her unprepared. Her failure only delights Richard. While he's having fun, Emmeline brings offerings to the island's god. On her way back along the ocean shore, she accidentally steps on a poisonous stonefish. Richard notices the girl is in trouble. Emmeline's temperature rises. Richard fears losing her and keeps her awake, though Emmeline asks the god to take her. For her sake, Richard breaks the only law. He carries the weakened girl to the forbidden part of the island and places her on the altar. The boy begs the god to save Emmeline's life. He spends long hours caring for her as if she were his closest person. Soon Emmeline recovers. Richard was so afraid of losing her. Now he brings Emma food. Looking around, the boy realizes someone regularly performs rituals here, perhaps someone from a neighboring island. Now, Richard helps Emma with everything, and she recovers quickly. They swim in the ocean again and enjoy life. Eating papaya, Richard suggests.
Kiss me.
How can she resist? Emma kisses him. Then Richard pours papaya juice on her lips and kisses her back. They get a strange feeling in their stomachs and their hearts beat faster. Could this be love? They've finally figured out their feelings. They simply love each other and want to hug, kiss, and spend time together. Now the couple lives as if in paradise. They bathe together and spend evenings together and just act like a couple. According to their modest knowledge of society, it's time for them to get married. Emmeline dresses as a bride and they dance their first wedding dance. Richard has learned to ride dolphins. Maybe this way he can leave the island. Emmeline isn't bored in marriage either and keeps her husband entertained, but she started eating too many coconuts.
Will you stop eating or getting fat?
The girl feels sick in the mornings. Richard doesn't understand what's happening to her. So the girl suggests he touch her stomach and feel the movement inside. One day Richard again hears drum beats and goes to investigate. Unexpectedly, he notices a group of islanders dancing around a fire. At the end of the ritual, they make a sacrifice and kill a person. Returning to the lagoon, the boy hears Emmeline's screams. Have the natives captured her? But it turns out the girl is suffering from labor pains. The cry spreads across the island, then comes the cry of a newborn. Congratulations, Daddy. Richard doesn't understand where Emmeline got the baby. The little one cries constantly. Seems he's hungry. But what to feed him? Emmeline offers him fruit, but it doesn't help. To calm the crying, she takes the child in her arms, and the baby immediately finds what he needs. Now Emmeline takes care of the baby and feeds him. Richard prepares spears for defense. He admits he saw savages at the altar, and if the natives come for them, Richard promises to protect the family. In the morning, Richard goes by boat to where Patty died. He finds his whitening bones on the shore and realizes he's mortal too, like his tiny baby. Later, Emmeline teaches the little one to swim. The boy grows and strengthens. They named the baby Patty, and his first word was Richard!
You said my name.
The young family lives happily on the island, but one day they're spotted by a passing schooner. Sailors call the captain to look at the dirty islanders. Through the spyglass, the man sees a couple with a child and decides to take a closer look. Emmeline and Richard exchange glances. Have they finally waited for rescue? But they decide to quickly hide in their quiet blue lagoon. Old Uncle Arthur doesn't recognize them through the dirt.
No, that couldn't be them.
And the ship sails away. The family returns to their happy life. One day, Emma decides to return to the old beach and visit Patty's grave. The whole family arrives at the shore near the ruined hut. The girl sadly visits her old deceased friend. Meanwhile, little Patty is attracted by the scarlet sleeping berries. Richard goes to gather bananas, and Emma, immersed in memories, doesn't notice the boat drifting from shore. She only realizes when the child throws the oar overboard. Richard hears her cries and rushes to help. He quickly swims to the oar, but Emmeline notices something in the water. A shark is approaching Richard. The girl throws the oar at the predator. This allows Richard to climb into the boat, but how will they reach the shore now? The shark continues circling the boat. Richard tries to paddle with his hands, but the boat drifts further from shore. Soon the island disappears from view. At sunset, Richard shows his son the huge sun. They spend the night lying on the bottom of the boat. In the morning, while the parents are still sleeping, little Patty tries the sleeping berries. Emma wakes immediately, but the child has already swallowed a whole handful. Soon, Patty feels ill and cries. Emma doesn't let him fall asleep, and Richard realizes their former happy life is forever over. He has already prepared a handful of sleeping berries and divided them into 2 piles. The lovers silently swallow them with tears in their eyes. Embracing, they lie on the bottom of the boat. At this moment, a ship appears on the horizon. The lookout notices 3 people in a boat and reports to old Arthur. The ship immediately changes course. A rescue team sets out to help. Coming closer, the rescuers see the lifeless young couple with a child.
Are they dead?
In fact, they're just sleeping, and now everything will be fine for them. And that deserves a like. Thank you.